Hello again and welcome back to my desk. It's Ian. I'm the president and CEO of Leadbox, and I'm excited to spend a little more time with you. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that everybody is getting super stoked about. Let's be clear, when was the last time you were in a room and people didn't mention AI, right? It's really Chat GPT that everybody got super excited about all of a sudden. Suddenly there's this accessible format. I was having a great conversation the other day with a friend of mine named Jay Radke, and he was really, laughing as I was at the fact that everybody is talking about it. If you really want to know details about all the, 6 layers deep of AI, go and chat with Jay. But for now, we're just going to talk a little bit about the fun things that are happening in the market with tools like GPT, like DALL-E, like, of course, Google Bard coming soon to Canada. Not quite here yet. We're looking forward to it, Google. Let's go. And Midjourney, right? Great way to make these things happen. And really, in the market today, with all of this excitement, it's creating all sorts of new conversations and people wondering how we can make use of these products, how we can make use of these tools in our day-to-day. But there's some important things that you really do need to be careful of, right? If we just jump into Chat GPT, for example, this large language model AI that really is quite extraordinary. I found myself the other day in a conversation saying that I found what was produced by Chat GPT to be quite thoughtful. And just using that as a descriptor when talking about a computer, well, that's a pretty unique thing. So yes, we've crossed this amazing chasm, and the ability that these tools have are quite fascinating. But we need to be very conscious of the fact that these systems want to have an answer, right? They want to give an answer. There's lots of nice disclaimers that are put in, but we got to be aware of factual correctness, right? There's a little something, a term that came up recently in an AI talk that I attended, where the term was hallucinations, right? Our systems that we're playing with, these systems want to have the answer, so they'll hallucinate. They'll grab whatever information they can to answer the question as effectively as possible, right? There is lots of repetitiveness that comes into play, right? So we have to be careful if we're using something again and again, like for vehicle descriptions, we might talk about a little later. We need to really be sure about how we're engineering the prompt to specify things that we don't want to happen, like repetitiveness. The other thing that's interesting, if you're trying to use it to write a marketing email or write marketing communications, you got to be careful about over pitching, right? The reality is everything is awesome, right? Everything coming out of Chat GPT is going to talk about the product as the greatest thing ever, the greatest thing since sliced bread. So be aware that when you want to tone down that, you want to tone down the awesome, right? Maybe turn it down 25%. And actually quite responsive. Of course, be polite with Chat GPT. We've also learned that politeness generates better response. But keep in mind that when it's over awesome, you can ask Chat GPT to be less, less flowery or less, overemphasizing on certain products, right? So there's some things that you really don't want to use Chat GPT for. Now, I'm not going to say that this is definitely a no-no, but I wouldn't use the advice that Chat GPT gives you if you're asking it questions about your personal situations, that sort of stuff. But it's a great way to start to change your frame of thought, right? You can punch in some wacky questions and get some interesting answers, right? There's a huge range of information that can draw from. Also, not a great idea to ask ChatGPT to produce a blog and then take it verbatim and put it up on your site, right? Very quickly, you can see your SEO get tanked, right? Some very real examples of that in the world these days. Fortunately, right, if you take the time and you've got the expertise and the writers to be able to work through these things, you can use them as an accelerant. You can use it to speed things up. We'll talk about that more in a sec. I definitely wouldn't follow any legal advice coming out of any one of these environments, right? You want to be very, very careful with that. And even with the image-based softwares that are out there, right, there's some copyright infringement happening, some interesting things seen in Midjourney where you can actually see the photo has a watermark of a particularly copywritten piece of material, piece of content, right? So you got to keep track of those sorts of things, as well as interpersonal communications. The last time I checked, interpersonal was meant to be personal. So if you take the time to write some communications, in fact, one of the things that I do every Friday, I send a note to our entire team, right? I send that note out. I take the time to write it out myself. It really ends up being a way for me to then communicate to the organization how things are going, let everybody know what's up. it just doesn't work when I put it into Chat GPT. I have tried once, right? I put it in there. In fact, it was at the behest of my team. They thought, oh, well, why don't you just put in the stuff into Chat GPT? It'll save you time. So I put it in there. It just didn't sound like me, right? You want your communication, interpersonal communications, and even business communications. If you're trying to commercial or to communicate your personal brand, right, you want to make sure to take the time to do that. Now, some areas that it can really help, particularly in accelerating these things, marketing emails, right? A great example is you'd still need to have that expert marketer looking at that information, right? You can't be putting something into one of these large language model systems, expect it to give out exactly what you need. You've got to know what you're looking for. That's why it ends up being a great way to accelerate production of all sorts of documents, right? It's a great starter. It's a great thought starter. In fact, just the other day, as we were introducing a product that we're excited about, but that little piece of it was to write up an email. And I wrote up the whole email by hand, and my teammate said, hey, did you put that email into Chat GPT? I said, no, let's try it. We put it in, and there was one paragraph that came out that I hadn't thought of that was just a beautifully written piece of the document, right? So took that out verbatim, and the fun thing to do is then say, hey, gang, we wrote up this communication. One paragraph was written exclusively by a large language model AI. See if you can pick out which one. And that's kind of the fun. You can start to have a bit of a game with it. You can start to play with it. The other thing that's really great to be able to do this with, because there's so much information, so much content, right? And you can make sure that each one is very different by setting up the right prompts, and that's vehicle descriptions, right? Short piece of text on your website, really designed to get the consumer excited about the particular vehicle, to romance the car. Great way to make use of large language model AI. So there's so much really going on in the marketplace in this arena. It's not going to stop, right? We talk about the extension and constant improvement of technology. It's just going to keep going. But I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what's happening with AI at your dealership. Are you using these tools? Are you making use of this in store? So please feel free to comment and let us know about that. I look forward to seeing you again. As I said, my name's Ian. I'm the president and CEO here at LeadBox. Look forward to chatting with you soon, and the best is yet to come.